How are you since last week, Jeremy? Jeremy, how are you since last week?
Sorry, I was getting up my
No,
presentation.
you're good.
Doing just fine, I guess. Same old.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yay. Hi.
Hello.
Today. Darren? Wait. Darren?
Hello.
Is that Darren from old office?
Yes, this is me. Hello. I'm trying to figure out how to use Zoom.
OMG!
What's up?
Wow!
Hi.
It's so long.
Did I figure it out? Hey, what's up?
Hey! That's so funny. So exciting.
Thank you. Well, it's the first one I'm in the right time zone for.
Your room is so cool.
And thank you. My aunt's actually. I'm staying at my aunt's currently. So she painted clouds on the ceiling. So
What? That's awesome. So good to see you. How you been?
thank you. I've been good. Just finally moved back into my aunt's place after quarantining for a while because of them. They're older, so I have to, take it easy. But I've been good. Almost got stuck in France. Was very close to getting stuck in France.
Really?
But yeah, other than that, just partying hard till we start summer quarter where I have classes to do.
Me too. Man, and what was it
What are you
like to
taking?
get out of France? Crazy?
I had 3 total flights cancel on me.
Oh my gosh.
And the trains, buses, and one of the taxi companies were all closed. So getting to the airport was an interesting time.
I'm sure.
But yeah, no, it was really interesting. I think it was cool to kind of see how they handled it versus how like COVID was handled in the US. Because like the like presidential difference of how they like the responses that they had. Like they froze evictions on everything. They gave everyone money. Paid for they paid landlords for electricity and gas, so landlords didn't have to pay either. They gave childcare to every hospital and governmental worker during the pandemic.
Wow.
But it was also $1,000 if you were caught outside without a note. So you definitely didn't want to get caught outside.
Yeah, that's really intense. Holy crap.
There's never been a moment where I like wished I wasn't American.
Right.
I'm like I already did, but this has kind of just been, yeah. Like
Oh yeah, no,
yesterday.
and like
What?
and everyone fights the government here, but over 90% of the French people like agree with what the French government is doing, which
Yeah.
I just thought was wild.
Yeah, you're like, what is this? Yesterday I try pretty close, or I try to follow like China news fairly closely because I want to move there in the fall, but it's not looking like that it's going to happen because there was like these reports that like as of now like the government is definitely not letting anyone in at least until October. And I was like, oh my god, like if that's what it is now, like they're probably going to keep pushing it back. And then who knows if by the end
Right.
of 2020, like it's not good.
Man,
Made me sad.
it is sad. So weird right now. Anyways, it's 4:05. So, is Hannah gonna be joining?
I thought so. Let me.
Okay. We could just go around and, well, I guess we all know each other. Wait, no, Darren, you haven't
I
met.
do not know Jeremy.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
So, yeah, Jeremy joined our club this year.
Awesome. I'm Darren. I helped start the club last year when it was all getting up and started. It was supposed to be a full year in France for a study abroad program, but I'm back stateside, so I'm now participating in the meetings since I can.
Wait, I have a question, Darren.
Yep.
What day did you get back to the U.S. and are you taking classes online from Kedge?
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
And are you taking classes online from Kedge, or are you like totally done?
I didn't go to Kedge.
Wait, where'd you go?
I went to EM Normandie. I went to it was like not even 400 kids, like the college, itty bitty. But no, I did it online. My last final was April 27th.
Oh.
So I ended school like back in April. And by then I was doing it online, but I really didn't do any work. I just did the finals because of time zone differences. I couldn't work with the class because there was a 9-hour time difference when lectures were given and they weren't recorded. So
That's rough.
I still passed. I'm fine.
Yeah. Good point.
But yes,
Well,
hi Jeremy.
yes, hello.
Okay, well, do we want to, like, what's a good, like, icebreaker question? I feel like
What have you been doing to keep sane during quarantine?
I feel like we've done that, like, every week.
I've
I think
been
we
doing
have,
pretty
yeah.
bad the last
Well.
week at keeping sane.
Yeah, my motivation is dropping.
Plummeted. It's gone to like a whole new meaning of zero. It's like I thought
Yeah.
zero was here, and now zero is way down there.
Yeah, I have, like,
Yep.
okay, how about a word to describe how you feel about this quarter ending, whether that's sadness or excitement.
Oh, big mood.
And it has to be ambiguous. So my word would be sunshine and happiness. Okay.
The fact that it has to be ambiguous, like I have so many questions.
You can't ask any questions, it's another rule.
No.
Okay, Emma, you're next.
Oh, here's Hannah. I was gonna say, I think my word is scared. I don't know. I'm just scared to go. I don't know. This week has been a little, and then I'm scared. I don't know why. Who's
Sure.
next?
Jeremy?
I guess my word will be surrounded.
Oh.
What does that mean? Oh,
You said it had to be ambiguous. I can't tell you.
sorry. Yeah, you're right. Breaking my rules.
So I guess.
Interesting. Okay, Keone.
I don't know, like graduation.
It's a good one. Okay, Ramon.
My word's indifferent.
Okay. Darren.
My word, to describe me right now is vagabond.
I don't know what that means, but all right. Hannah, we're using one word to describe our feelings about this quarter ending, and it has to be ambiguous. And we can't ask questions.
Uncertainty. I don't know.
Yeah.
Little depressed. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Absolutely.
Okay. Cool. Well, so first we're gonna present on Europe. Jeremy's gonna do that presentation, and then I'm gonna do a little presentation on Morocco. I'm just gonna, do we want to do like questions in the chat, or do we just want to ask without or throughout? Because before we were just doing like everyone mutes themselves while they get their presentation, and then afterwards people can ask questions. And you can like type your questions in the chat. Does that still sound good to people? Okay, we can do that. Cool. Yeah, so just mute yourself during the presentations, and then if you have questions throughout the presentations, just type in the chat and then we'll answer them afterwards. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. Jeremy, take it away.
All right. Whoever's the host needs to allow me to share the screen now.
Emmeline's the host.
There we go. We're good now. All right. You can all see it?
Yes, yes, we can.
All right. Yes. The one thing that please let me know if I cut out and you miss any words, because that's always a risk with my room and our crappy Wi-Fi connection. So please let me know that. Feel free to jump in and tell me that you can't hear me. But I'm here to present about the fall semester I spent in Lisbon in 2019 through the API program. It's about the program. Like I said, I studied abroad last fall, and I attended ISTE-UL in Lisbon, right in the heart of downtown Lisbon, in a very central location. I studied economics, international studies, and the Portuguese language while I was there. And I also lived in an apartment near the city center, so where I was able to see a lot of the city really easily, just walking and taking the subway to and from school. So it was a nice, good location to get to know the city really well. And that picture on the left shows some of my 9 flatmates. Technically, I lived with 5 girls and 4 more girls in our program of downstairs. So yeah, I had 9 girls around me at all times since we all kind of lived in both apartments. It was a fun experience, I gotta say. Okay, a quick profile of the city of Lisbon. So it is the capital of Portugal and also the largest city with about 500,000 within the city limits, but 3 million in the metro area, which is most of the population of Portugal because it's not a very large country. It's about half the size of Seattle. It has 24 distinct districts. It's located on the Tejo River. Technically, it's anglicized to Tagus, but no one calls it Tagus except English speakers, so it's the Tejo. It has a Southern California climate, which I miss very, very much. And over the last decade, it has slowly been revitalized. It recovered from the dictatorship under Salazar and has become a trendy travel destination, especially amongst Europeans. Apparently 10 years ago, some people I know who traveled there said it was like a backwater town and there was barely anyone there. And that was definitely not the case while I was there. It was busy, especially in September. So some cultural norms I learned on this trip that I think would be good to know when you travel to Portugal. Number one, most important, is the concept of Portuguese time. If you've ever had any Portuguese friends, you probably already know about this anyway, and this also is applicable in other cultures too. But if they say, oh, we're having a party at 11 p.m., why don't you come by? You don't show up at 11 p.m. You show up at midnight at the earliest. That's the earliest though. At that point, you might start to show up with a couple of people, but you'll still be one of the first ones there. Things start late, and including classes, actually. It was normal that classes started 5 to 15 minutes late, and that was an interesting thing to get used to, but you did. Next, never speak Spanish. Yes, it's similar. The Portuguese people know. The words are similar because obviously they're both Romantic languages, but don't speak Spanish to Portuguese people because they're very prideful about the uniqueness of their language, and they prefer if you spoke English to them rather than Spanish. So don't speak Spanish. The next thing to expect is there is a high level of formality in speaking and dressing. There rather old-fashioned. If you go walking around dressed in like sweats, like your normal college wear, maybe right now you're going to get strange looks because pretty much everyone walking around is wearing dress suits and slacks and nice clothing. So I got pretty used to people looking at me weird for wearing jeans and stuff like that because that's not formal enough. Greetings. So I didn't know about this going in, but the way that especially women greet each other or greet everyone is with kisses on the cheek. So if you're a woman, you kiss the right cheek first and the left cheek second. If you're a guy, you present your left cheek first and your right cheek second, and be prepared for that. They have very liberal views on drugs and alcohol. So drugs aren't, most drugs that aren't legal, however, they're decriminalized, so you don't go to jail for them, you just get a fine or have to do community service, but they're still illegal. Alcohol, you can literally walk through the streets with open bottles. That's Portugal's policy on alcohol. Oh, and finally, last but not least, never speak Spanish, because I had to say it again, because that's very important. So for school, what to expect what it's like to go to school in Portugal. It's a lecture-style classroom most of the week. Usually, since it's a semester school, you're meeting 2 to 3 times a week. With one of those classes, at least for me, it was like an application class, kind of like where you did practice problems. The grading system is from 0 to 20, with 10 being a pass. But there's very little to no homework. In fact, I only had one class that had any homework. So the grades are pretty much based on a midterm and a final. So those tests are very crucial. And even more crucial because a strong level of independence is expected because of that, because you don't have homework guiding your learning along. Professors are easiest accessed by email, and that's not saying anything because they're not likely to respond. Also, I mean, this was to be expected. I did take my coursework in English, but they're not the easiest to understand still, and that's understandable because it's their second language. But that's just something to take into consideration. Like I already said, class will normally start 5 to 15 minutes late. You expect to spend a lot of time in the library because when you have 3 classes in a day, but there's 2 hours between them and it takes half an hour to go home, you're not going to go home. Oh, and about the finals, at least at my university, I'm sure some of you might have heard my sob story about this already, but their finals are in January, so going to Western, you'll have to take them during the beginning of winter quarter. And just stuff like snow happens, all of a sudden you can be in a situation where you have to take a test you don't want to and you fail the class. Warning to the wise, be careful of that. And it's very easy to lose all your work ethic because coming from a quarter semester school, it felt excruciatingly slow and there's no homework to keep you busy. So it was really hard to work. Okay, now to the fun stuff. A little brief introduction to some of the food and drink. The classic food of Portugal is bacalhau, which is salted cod. They say that there's either 1,001 dishes for it or a dish for every day of the year, whichever you prefer. But it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. I wasn't a fan of it because I'm not a fan of fish as much, but it was all right. Now, for those of you here who are not meat eaters, look away at this one because this is the meatiest sandwich in existence, I'm pretty sure. It's the francesinha. It has 4 types of meat between rye bread. It's covered in beer/cheese sauce on top of the fried egg. It's really delicious. That is if you eat meat. The cool thing about Lisbon is that they have these things called chinês clandestino, which are illegal Chinese restaurants in people's apartments. They avoid paying taxes by having them in their apartments, and it's really, really cheap because of that. I got a full buffet of Chinese food for €8. It was the cheapest I've ever eaten, and also a pretty good quality too. Now, the other ubiquitous food of Portugal is the pastel de nata, which is this egg custard that was originally made by monks. And when the monks lost their church during revolutions, they had to sell the recipe to make ends meet. So now everyone gets to eat them, and they're really good, and you can get them everywhere. And finally, drinks. Portugal is a wine country, so this is the place to have wine. In fact, the little tiny grocery store, which is an average-sized grocery store for Portugal I went to, about a third of it was taken up by wine and other alcohol. So wine's very important there. And you can try such wine as port wine, which is from Porto in northern Portugal. And also there's special vinho verde, which is a mix of red and white. It's interesting. Also, Lisbon is the place to try cocktails, because nowhere else, there's other places in the world where you can do this, but not many. You can get cocktails for $4 or $5 at high quality. So this is the place to try all those cocktails you've been wanting to try. Now, finally, what to do in Portugal? The fun stuff. So I found this cool quote that I think sounded about right. Any Portuguese town looks like the bride's finery, something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. So we're going to see that that is true. So first, within Lisbon, the nightlife. Definitely the number one thing to do in Lisbon, in my opinion. It has a nightlife culture like no other place I've experienced. The picture on the left is Bajo Alto, which is the best place to go at night, where you can get good drinks, cheap drinks, and there's thousands of people walking through there every night, literally every night of the week. It's a weekend every night in Bajo Alto. Also, there's lots of other beautiful rooftop bars. That's a thing in Portugal. Just in general, the nightlife is something to experience. The clubs, not so good. In fact, from my experience, the clubs there are racist, so I wouldn't support them. We didn't, after we learned that they were racist. And in fact, one of the clubs that we went to only once before we learning they were racist was closed down for a year because they beat people up and threw their phones in the river. So don't go to clubs in Portugal unconsciously. Next, attend a football game. Definitely you want to attend a football game. The Portuguese are very passionate about their national sport and their national team, and of course, Ronaldo. This was actually the first soccer game I ever went to, and it was an amazing experience. I have to say, listening to like the 50,000 people in the stadium sing the national anthem is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Portuguese national anthem is kick-ass. I highly recommend listening to it. Visit the 7 Miradouros. So Portugal, like Rome, is built on 7 hills, and each of those hills has a Miradouro, which is a viewpoint. And I only made it to the two that you see in these photos, but the views from them are amazing. And in fact, the one on the left actually has a 11th century castle at the top of it too that you can explore. Museums and such. So there's some cool museums to see as well. You can go to the Museu Nacional do Azulejo, which is about the tiles that adorn every Lisbon street. You see tiles like this everywhere in Lisbon. You can also go to the world's largest entirely indoor aquarium. And you can also go to this cool museum called the MAT, which is a modern art museum. It has some extremely weird art and interactive art. It was an interesting experience. Next, you want to go in Lisbon, you want to go to Belém. Belém is a very old part of Portugal. It's home to the Jerónimos Monastery, which is the upper right photo. It's home to the Tower of Belém, which the original one was what Christopher Columbus sailed by upon his return to Europe after rediscovering the Americas. And this is also where you can see Portugal's equivalent of the Golden Gate Bridge, Ponte de Abril 25, which is that bridge in the bottom left or bottom right. It really does look like the Golden Gate Bridge. They also have their own Christ the Redeemer statue, which is that statue that you can kind of see right here. It's not as big, but still cool. Now, if we go outside of Lisbon a little bit, we want to go to Sintra, which is the castle district near Lisbon. It's only about an hour away by train. And this is where you can see all the beautiful summer palaces that Portuguese royalty have lived in. I want to say there's something like 5 or 6 castles within about a 4 or 5 mile vicinity. There's a lot of them. You can go to the Montserrat Palace, which I enjoyed my time there so much that I rode down the hill in front of it. It's definitely classy for a classy palace. And also the palace to the right, Palacio de Pena, which is considered one of the most beautiful castles in the world. I think that's pretty self-explanatory based on the photo. The next place you need to go outside of Lisbon is about 3 hours south, the sunny Algarve, which is it's the southern tip of Portugal that borders the Atlantic Ocean. It has beautiful beaches and rocks and shoreline and very sparkling blue water. The water is very cold though all the time, but it was still beautiful. Kayaking through some caves and grottos in that area was a unique experience. Also, you need to go 3 hours north, the very northern part of Portugal, the Porto. It kind of reminded me a little bit more of what a European city might look like before I traveled anywhere else in Europe, because Lisbon's very open and because it was rebuilt after they had an earthquake, but Porto's really, really old. So the streets are very narrow. all the buildings look like this, and it rains a lot. In fact, while we were there was a 2-hour period where it rained 2 inches of rain in 2 hours while we were out on a walking tour. It took about 24 hours for my shoes to dry out. But then the next day, it was like the picture on the right. This is where you want to go if you want to do wine tasting, for sure. And then also you go to the beautiful beaches closer to Lisbon. This is the place where you want to surf. In fact, at Nazaré, about an hour and a half northwest of Lisbon, is home to the world's largest waves, about 100 feet, and people surf. Not waves that big, pretty close to that big every year. But also you can go out on the train out west to Cascais, which is the bougie city of Portugal with mansions, but lots of nice beaches as well. Since Portugal is a marine's country, there's beaches literally everywhere, and all of them are beautiful, at least the ones I went to. And then also, if you went a little bit, if you're feeling homesick for that Washington environment, like I was in November, about a month from going home, you go to Serra da Estrela, which is the only place in Portugal where you can see snow. And that's only for about a couple months of the year. But it's beautiful, rugged countryside. Also a great place to taste wine. And if you just want to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, this is the place to go. Oh, and before I forget, last but not least, perhaps my favorite place in the world, although I'm kind of biased, I have familial bias because this is where my grandfather was born, and I've probably talked about this before, but I absolutely love this place. This is the third busiest port in all of Europe, actually, by some metric, like by number of boats. It has the highest point in Portugal as well, which I was brave enough to climb. It's the hardest hike I've ever done, but also the most beautiful view I've ever seen at the very top of it. Oh, and this was the place where I also learned how to drive a scooter on the fly and hitchhiked 5 different times. Oh, I'm talking about where? By the way, Calder is my last name, just in case that slips by. The Azores, my favorite place in the world. Now, you can't tell anyone I told you about them because Americans don't know about them, and it needs to stay that way because they'll mess it up like they mess so many other tourist destinations up. So don't tell anyone. Okay, and I'm going to finish by talking about how to get around Lisbon and also by extension other parts of Europe from Lisbon. So within Lisbon, there's the metro line. There's 4 different lines. There's the blue, red, yellow, and green, and they can get you literally anywhere. So I lived here. I'm going to try something. Can you all see the pointer? See that red pointer? Okay. I lived right here between Marquês de Bombom and Picoche. From the yellow line, which is right next to where I lived, I could get to my university. I could also go to the blue line right here, and I could get to all the bars and clubs right here. I could go up 1 stop to the red line and go all the way to the airport over here. Also, I could get on the blue line, which would take me to malls over here, and also the red line takes you to malls. So literally, I could get anywhere in the city without that. Never would have needed a car. I think you could live in Lisbon without a car easily. But yes, the red line takes you to the airport, which travels pretty much everywhere in Europe. I use it to travel everywhere I went in Europe. There's also long distance buses that you can take, such as Flixbus or Omni. I use that to get to Spain. They leave from Oriente over here somewhere. I can't actually see it because your faces are blocking it. And then you can also leave from Sete Rios, which is right here. That's how I got all through Iberia. There's also trains that go to other parts of Portugal from Campos, which is right here, Caixa de Sodré, which is down here, and Oriente, which is over here, and that's how I got through Portugal. If you're in Portugal, you want a city bus pass because you can use it to take the buses, the trams like this, even elevators, which are a unique thing. And also, Ubers are the way to get around late at nights because the metro closes at 1 and parties in Lisbon don't end until 4. So you're going to need an Uber to get home, and they're really cheap. So that's what you're going to want to use. Don't use the taxis because I got swindled by a taxi on my first day there. No taxis, Uber only. If anyone has any questions about the other places I traveled, these are the other places I traveled. Spain, Amsterdam, Budapest, and France, the southern part of France. Oh, and my last piece of advice. No matter where you are in Europe, join Erasmus, please do it. It's the best way to get into lots of free events and get free drinks and free admission to clubs and bars everywhere. It's a great way to meet people from all around the world who are studying abroad. and learn how lucky they are that they get to study abroad for free as long as they pass their classes. And also it's a way to take discounted trips throughout where you are. So pretty much every place, university in Europe should have an Erasmus organization. So join it. That's my number one advice. I didn't know they existed until I went, and I did not regret joining it. It was the best 20 euros I've ever spent. Well, that's it. Obrigado. Até logo.
Cool. Thanks, Jeremy.
No problem.
Okay.
Great job.
So it sounds like, Darren, you have a few slides too.
Yeah, if you guys want them.
Is yours on France?
Yeah.
By the
Okay.
way, you guys want to know where the Azores are, and you didn't already know. Oh, they are right there. But don't find one.
Itty bitty little place.
Okay, then Darren, maybe you should just present some of your slides, and then afterwards I can present about Morocco.
You sure you don't want to go first?
I was just thinking because Jeremy just did Europe, and so we could do Europe again, and then
Okay. Mine's real short. Mine's like 5 slides.
that's fine. Mine's pretty short too, so.
Okay. Gotta figure out how to do it with Zoom. Okay, screen share. My PowerPoint. So you guys can see this?
Yes.
Question mark?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, I went to France last year. This place is about that's right north. If you see right up here, ooh, can I do the pointer thing too? Pointer options. Laser pointer. Thank you. So I was in this area of France right here, Normandy. You may know it from the D-Day. I did get to visit those beaches and see that history there, which was a very humbling experience as a person to see those types of war sites. So yeah, I'm gonna start off with just a base rundown of the areas. I went to and how to interact in those areas. This one, of course, is me, Eiffel Tower, in Paris. Out of all of the major cities I went to, Paris probably had one of the most on-time transits in metros, and which was very nice. And I don't know if anyone else has used the app before. It's called Move It, and it's a transit app. It auto syncs to the metro system that you're currently on. So no matter what city you're in, it will sync to that metro and helps a lot with like underground transfers of metros. No matter what city you're in, I use it all the time in all the cities. This is Budapest. Budapest was a very great place to go. I was only there for a day. I was in Bratislava, Slovakia for about a week. And the difference in culture between those two countries were very, very stark, even though they're right next to each other. If you ever go to Slovakia, it's a very humble, very small, like Eastern European country. And those were probably the nicest people I met. And it's just a very, very quaint area. This was Etretat. Etretat is, for any of you science nerds out there, Etretat is the reverse tectonic plate of the White Cliffs of Dover. So England and France used to be connected before England moved away. And so these cliffs are the same ones as you see in England when you're looking at the White Cliffs of Dover. However, most people usually go only to there. And then this is the Centena Familia, and this was one of the coolest churches that I get to see. If you're ever in Europe, there's always a free walking tour company that's in most major cities. And so like I took one in Spain, and it was about 4 hours. It was free. And then they also let you know about other paid ones they have. I went on like a forbidden tour that looked at anarchy, slum rings, prostitution, and mass murder in Spain during the Red Terror, the White Terror, and the 40 Years of Silence, which are all like very historical events and tyranny in Spain. This is the school I went to, EM Normandie. This is the school I went to. This is the school that the other kids get to go to next year, which I'm very salty about. I was supposed to get to go to the fancy new school, but I didn't get to. So this is the old school that's currently now closed, and then they'll be going to this one next year. It was, the school-wise was probably the biggest culture shock for me, which is the funny part, because the way that Americans run schools was so much different than this school. It is a private school in France, so I cannot say that this is like how all public institutions are in France. I'm assuming they're modeled similarly, just like public and private schools are here in the US. But there was zero individual work. I did entirely group work both semesters for all of my courses. So group work is 40% of your grade, and then you have your exam at the end. The schedules are made for you. You're put on a schedule, and it changes every week, fluctuates daily, which for a lot of, I know, Western students would be a huge problem if they didn't have any or zero control over when their classes are, what days a week. And the French love to smoke, lots of cigarettes every day. And so we would have, one of the things that was interesting that you would have to get used to is you would take probably in a 3-hour course, you'd take anywhere from 1 to 3 like breaks where everyone would go and like smoke. And that was just something you had to deal with, even if you had to like sit in a classroom for 15-20 minutes. I just usually went and played ping pong ball downstairs while they were smoking, because that was the fun thing to do. But, and a little more on just French in general while I'm on this slide. The stereotype that the French are snobby, I only got very, very few times. And when I did, it was usually always a very older person. It wasn't everyone that I met that was even remotely below the age of like 30 was super nice and super helpful. One thing I will say is the French a lot of the times don't like you practicing French with them, which is very like counterproductive. A lot of the times when I would speak broken French to someone trying to, I was learning, I'd never spoken French before this. So, I was learning to order coffee, and a lot of the times they would reply to you in English because they didn't care to practice enough, which kind of sucked, but, you got used to it over a while. Here's all the people. One interesting part about, I was in a cohort of about 50 people for my major. It was in English. We had 16 different countries in that course with us. Probably half of them were French. But that was probably one of the most interesting, most fun parts of it was I had, like, if you look just in this picture, you have, these two are Hungarian, German, Russian, Spanish, Moroccan, American, and Italian. And so the diversity of like people and like knowledge was super interesting, and I think that was probably my favorite part of the whole trip, was learning from people, learning from other college students, and like how their schools work and how their country works and stuff like that. One thing I wanted to do was give a brief like little history on the city I lived in, Le Havre. This is one of the 2 churches that survived D-Day, because over 70% of the city was leveled because it was originally controlled by Nazi Germany. And this is their World War II memorial here, that's on the beach. But one thing I learned is the coast actually, if you can see the little pointer, the coast used to actually go here. This was all bombed out and then turned later into beaches. Same with the library. The current library is built inside of a bomb crater. So it has like an underground area for where that was. A lot of people in France think the city's ugly because it's the person who designed it after when it was being rebuilt was very modernistic. And so this city is really nice because it's not touristy, because it's not seen to the French people as very pretty. So it was a very, very quiet town, even though it was 200,000 people living there. And so, but yeah, ta-da.
Sweet. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you. Oh, stop screen sharing. Pause share. No.
I think Emma can help you if you're struggling.
There should be a red button at the top that says
Yeah,
stop
there
share.
should, but let me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
There.
okay. Yeah, it was a big red button.
Okay, cool. I will share about Morocco, and then we can do a brief Q&A on the different places. Oh, don't look at my screen. Okay, how do I play it? This thing is in the way. Play from start. Okay. So, I studied abroad in Meknes, Morocco. Man, it's been 2 years now, which is crazy to think about. And I went through international studies abroad. I chose them just because they have more of a like structured program than other programs. They like would plan excursions on the weekends, and it was a really close knit group. There was like 20 of us, and we all got really close, and we were in a language center and stuff. Where? So, oh, I guess you can't see my scroller, but on the left you can see where Morocco is. It is in Africa. It's in the very northwest of Africa. It's right underneath Spain and Portugal. You can see the picture in the middle. Those are a bunch of different cities, and I got to visit a handful of them. How do I do the pointer? How did you guys do that?
I don't know how to do it on Mac.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Anyways, you can see Rabat, which is on the coast, and it has the biggest dot. That is the capital of Morocco. If you look a little bit below it, it's Casablanca, and Casablanca has the highest population. If you look if you look at Rabat and kind of go to the right, you can see a city called Meknes, and that's where I lived. So it was like not on the coast, it was kind of more towards the center of Morocco. You can see on the very right, Morocco. I think when people picture, at least when I was about to study abroad in Morocco, people picture just like desert and like tents and stuff, which is not realistic. It's pretty developed there. You guys probably know that. And they have like different seasons and mountains, and you can see the picture on the very right. There's like the coast, and then there's mountains in the middle, and then it's also has parts of the Sahara in it. Some facts about Morocco. It is a part of the Middle East, and so a lot of like laws and stuff like that are based off of the Quran. And if you go there, they're actively practicing it, and so you'll hear like the 5 pillars of faith, or sorry, the call to prayer throughout the day, which was something I had to get used to. And it's just like a loud like guy speaking over like a megaphone, and he's chanting something. I never really figured out what it was, but it's pretty much calling people to the mosque to come pray, and it happens 5 times a day. I think one is at sunrise, and then there's 3 throughout the day, and then there's one at sunset. I don't remember the exact times, sorry. But yeah, it would wake me up at like 5 in the morning, and it really took some time to get used to it. And most people have like shutters they put over the windows so that it's not as loud. You can see the picture in the far right corner, top right. 99% of the population is Muslim, and there's 1% of the population that's Christian. There was Jews that were in Morocco, but a while ago they were kind of pushed out. As for languages, the official languages are Berber and Modern Standard Arabic. While I was there, I was learning Modern Standard Arabic, and that's kind of like a dialect that all Arabic-speaking places are supposed to understand, which isn't really realistic. But there's just so many dialects of Arabic, it's hard to start somewhere. The spoken language in Morocco is called Darija, which is like a mix of French, English, and Arabic. Sometimes French or Spanish is sprinkled in there too. It's kind of crazy. I learned a little bit of it, but I was mainly studying Modern Standard Arabic. And then the upper class speaks French. This is because Morocco was colonized by France, and so it has like a large influence over the culture there. If you look at the picture in the middle with the ethnic groups, ethnic groups are mainly Arab Berber, and then Berber. And Berber people, like kind of in the south of Morocco, had a different dialect. I can't remember what it was. And then the flag on the right, that's Morocco's flag, and the different meanings of the colors and all that. And the star represents the 5 pillars of faith for Islam. My school, if you look at the picture in the middle and the picture on the right, the picture in the middle was my Arabic professor, and he was the sweetest old man. It's like a different relationship there, where like here you don't really get like super close with your teachers. I mean, sometimes you do, but it's not like all that common. This professor would like tell us we were beautiful all the time and would hug us and like would ask us about our families, and that's kind of like normal. He still like messages me sometimes to see how I'm doing. He's really sweet. And asks how my brother is still. Like he never met my brother. He was just like wanted to know about my family. The picture to the very right is the study center that I was studying at, and it was all English speaking, like all the classes were in English, and it was just like the 20 of us going to school there. The picture on the left kind of shows the different like literacy rates in Morocco. So 42% of women and 22% of men can't read or write. They have English schools, Arabic schools, and French schools. My Moroccan host brother, he went to a French high school, and they had like prom and stuff, just like it is in the US. Many students go abroad for university if they can afford it, but many also go to school in Morocco. But just from what I've talked with my Moroccan friends, they've told me that education abroad can be better. Meknes, this is my home. You can see in the far left corner, that's me and my host brother. We were really close. He's, when I was studying, I was 20 and he was 18. And so we had many good laughs and hangouts, and we got really close, and it was really fun. The picture above that was the group that I studied with. It wasn't all of them, but that's most of them. And we would hang out all the time. It was really fun. There isn't really a nightlife in Morocco because drinking alcohol is like haram or like sinful. And like people still did drink alcohol, but if we were gonna party or anything, it was usually in someone's apartment. If you look at the dish in the middle, that is couscous, and their holy day is on Friday. And if you go to like restaurants and stuff, even if there's couscous on the menu, it's usually only available on Friday because it's just kind of dedicated for like the holy day. And those are other various pictures. Medinas, so after they were colonized by France, there was, this is called like the old part of the town, which was kind of like the original Morocco, and then there was like the new part of town that has a lot of European influence. And this is kind of what they look like. There's just like, it's kind of what you picture when you picture Morocco, like lots of tiles and markets, and it's just really, really beautiful. Sorry, no, can you guys see that? It always does that. Okay. Okay, so Ifrane. Ifrane is known as the Switzerland of Morocco. It's really beautiful. It has houses like that all over, and that's where there's a lot of snow. we went hiking there when it was snowing, and it was really crazy. There was like 2 feet of snow. If you look at the picture in the very right corner, that's me pushing the director's face into the snow because he tried to push me into the snow. We got really close to the directors, and we would have like dance parties in their office all the time. Super fun. Marzuga, this is where I camped in the desert. I rode camels, I went sandboarding, I went quadding, and the tents and stuff, that's not where I stayed, that's just something I found online. But that's kind of what my situation looked like with where we slept. Super fun. Chefchaouen is known as the Blue Pearl of Morocco. It was painted blue by Jews before they left. And so this whole city, just like everything is painted blue, like the streets and everything, and it's gorgeous. And you can see from the 2 pictures on the right that it's like in the mountains. Very gorgeous, highly recommend if you ever go to Morocco. Tangier, this is kind of a more European looking town. It's on the water, and if you look, if you're looking from Tangier to Spain, you can actually see Spain, and people will take ferries to and from Spain sometimes. I heard they're not that reliable, so I never did it. I'd rather fly, but I know people do it sometimes. Casablanca. Casablanca is the most populated city in Morocco. This mosque is the Hassan Mosque. I hope I'm saying that right, but it's the tallest mosque in the world, and it's if you're not Muslim, you can't really go into mosques, and so this is like one of the few mosques that you can actually go in and see, and they do tours and stuff, and so you can see, like, I think they built it by hand, like around the clock for like 7 years, I think, and it's so intricate and beautiful, and yeah, it's just really amazing. Fez is the city where you'd go shopping. It's really well known for their Medina, and their Medina is huge, and that's kind of where you would go to like buy leather stuff. The place on the left it smells really weird. When we went there, they gave us mint to just smell the entire time because it smelled gross. But those little pots are just like different things that they dip the leather in to dye it, and yeah, it smells weird. And then I went backpacking afterwards because Morocco was so cost friendly. I was able to backpack afterwards with the money that I saved, and I went to Italy, Switzerland, Greece, Budapest, Hungary, Czech Republic, Spain, and France. And so those are just some of my pictures from my travels. Really beautiful. And I used Go Euro to get from place to place. And then to find hostels and stuff, I used Hostelworld, and Booking.com. Yeah. Okay.
Everything is so beautiful.
I know. It is so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, the food in Morocco was amazing. Couscous was like the holy dish, but then they have like tagine, which is like meat and vegetables and all this stuff cooked in like this clay pot, and it's really good.
Thank you.
Hannah asked me if they prefer to be called Berber. I didn't hear them called anything else. That's what they called themselves when I was there, and that's what everyone else called them. And so I don't know if they prefer something different. It's a good question.
Well, I know when I was there, they I guess that's more of an antiquated term. I think they now prefer to go by Amazigh, which just because it has less of that connotation with if you look at the meaning of the word. I don't think they maybe expect all the people to know that, but that was something I found to be really, really interesting when I was there. And yeah, the food was so good. I definitely had like food withdrawal when I came back. I think nothing tasted good in comparison. I was like, I need these spices. So cool.
Yeah, it was really good. It was so many carbs though. My like host mom would just shove bread like down my throat. I'm like, please, I don't want any more. And she would just keep feeding me. She would literally like take food with bread and put it in the dish and feed it to me with her hand. It's like, I don't want this. Like, please stop.
I prefer that cuisine though. You could have been having fish shoved in your face all the time instead.
Was that what happened to you?
Well, all the food you can get in Portugal from Portuguese restaurants is pretty much fish. They love their fish. I don't.
Interesting. Yeah, it was just lots of like beef and chicken and bread. Was someone saying something? Is Darren trying to talk?
Can you hear me?
I don't think we can hear you. Maybe you should type it.
I mean, it technically says that you're muted.
I think it keeps going back and forth.
Oh,
Oh.
Oh.
It, well, do you guys have any questions on Morocco or Portugal or even backpacking?
Or other places in Europe, like.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's just so cool. I just wish I want to do it.
Yeah. I'm really glad that I was able to do it when I did, because it's probably not going to be possible for a while.
Mm.